Good morning. It is Wednesday. We here in the United States are well into the autumn season. I live in the Mojave Desert, and we are still in the 90s. Actually, I think we're going to be in the 80s, high 80s. But on Saturday, we're supposed to get back into the 60s by Sunday. So it's just been nice to have the change of weather, even here in the desert. I hope you are doing well. Today, I want to challenge some of the traditional play therapy mindsets just a little bit. Well, maybe kind of a lot. Um, and the reason I want to challenge them is because I think there is a much more effective way to help facilitate change for children and adolescents, including in the play therapy process. And so I think there are some things that can happen that tend to interfere the ability to get some really good results in play therapy if this shift isn't really taken advantage of. So, shall we say? So, if you're watching me live today, I would love to see who's here. Please go ahead and post your name in the comments, post where you're from, what population you work with. So every Wednesday, I live stream into LinkedIn, onto YouTube, on my YouTube channel, and Instagram, as well as into my Facebook group for child and adolescent therapists using play therapy and expressive arts. If you're interested in my Facebook group, it's free. It's called Play and Expressive Arts Therapy Playground. You do have to be a child and adolescent therapist using play therapy and expressive arts, and you do have to answer the questions to get into the group. Because if you don't answer all of the questions, I don't have a way of kind of making sure it's a good fit for you. So today I want to talk a little bit about parents. And as play therapists, how are we engaging parents in the play therapy process, or maybe not engaging them as fully as beneficial for it to be? So I'm Kathy Spooner. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and a registered play therapy supervisor here in the United States. I have been in the mental health field for about 30 years. I have always worked with children and adolescents. Prior to being in the mental health field, I was in special education, elementary school age, and working with children with emotional problems, which is actually where I was first introduced to play therapy back in the 1980s. So, one of the things that I really love doing these days is helping play therapists, child and adolescent therapists, really level up your skills with play therapy, taking my 30 years plus of experience working with children and adolescents from a variety of backgrounds and helping families to heal, helping children in their families to heal. And I do that through trainings. I currently facilitate an online play therapy supervision group twice a month. I do online individual play therapy supervision, and I do monthly trainings. Most of them are live trainings, live webinar trainings. And I have started to go back to in person trainings. In fact, I had a Santre 2-day in person Santre training last weekend, which was so awesome. I love doing those. They're usually, I try to keep those small. So if you're interested in learning more about play therapy and um, how to level up your skills using play therapy and expressive arts to get even more impact, positive impact, and positive treatment outcomes for your clients, then I am happy to help you with that. I love doing that. So I'll talk a little bit more at the end of the training about a live webinar opportunity that I have going on right now. I also have one coming up in December, and and then I have some new trainings coming up in 2023. So today, though, I want to focus on what's the biggest mistake in the last 30 years that I have seen myself make early on. And then now, as I work more in helping the next generation of play therapists really hone their skills and even work with some seasoned play therapists to hone your skills even more because we're lifelong learners. I still love learning. In fact, I was doing some research yesterday on a topic. Um, and so I call it my inner psychotherapy nerd has been coming out to play, checking out some other topics that I'm really, really interested in. Um, so that's what I want to do today is the biggest mistake that I see going on with in the play therapy process. And also the second biggest mistake I see is really not engaging parents much more effectively. What do I mean by that? I mean, not just meeting with them for like 5, 10 minutes after your client's session or interacting during the week through email, through text, through voice messages and phone calls. Not just that, I mean, really integrating parents, building that rapport with parents in a much more intentional way so that you can help the family make some significant shifts that are going to be important for your client to support the changes that they're making in the individual sessions that you're having with them. And some of the problems that I found can happen are, one, really, do you get as much impact? Do you get as much change in the play therapy process? I think sometimes you can, because I think sometimes you have kids that are maybe a little higher functioning, you have higher functioning parents, and those check-ins, they'll make the changes. They already have a lot of strengths anyway, and maybe their child is hitting some bumps along the way. So I think those families are naturally going to make some changes. I think my mouth's not working today. I think it's been my experience that families who are struggling more, even the higher acuity families. So the higher acuity families are families with uh, generational history of trauma, attachment, addiction, poverty. I always say you can't give away what you don't possess. If you don't if you weren't modeled, if you weren't given, if you weren't co-regulated as a child, then you have to learn all these skills. And when you come from families where there's really a generational history of trauma, attachment, addiction, and poverty, then what we tend to find is they have kind of um, a harder time really making the shifts because they're not necessarily sure what to do. And they feel judged. They feel like people are blaming them. They already have a lot of shame and guilt to begin with. So these are the families I think that we maybe don't have frameworks in place that are going to be more successful for them. And so mostly the families that I'm talking about today that play therapists are working with, that you're working with, are kind of the moderate to more severe families. And I think we're seeing a lot of these families now because people are still struggling coming out of the pandemic. and still trying to figure out how to help their kids, how to help themselves. People are burned out, overwhelmed, frustrated, angry, numb. I mean, honestly, if we're being honest, a lot of us feel this way too, just because of what's going on. And I know here in the US, there's a lot of ugh and blah. Those are my technical terms going on. So, so how, as a play therapist, how do you help these families? How do you get more impact? How do you help them to succeed? And to me, the biggest mistake that we make in play therapy that I see over and over and over again with the people that I talk to in my trainings, in supervision, we talk a lot about these. We, in fact, one of my favorite things I just heard recently from somebody in my play therapy supervision group said to me, Kathy, you were right. I've started using integrating parents more. It's making a big difference. That just made my day. Not because it proved I was right, but because they're getting it. They're understanding that this is going to help their clients more. And to me, that's why we do this. That's what makes this rewarding. That's why we do the hard things that we do to help clients make that shift. And so to me, one of the biggest mistakes is not including parents more as a more integral part. And the reason it's a mistake is because you tend to not get as much effectiveness, especially with the type of families that I mentioned. Hey there. So a couple of um, people on Instagram, thanks for joining. Centro Groen said, that's true. Yes, so true. Um, so here's the thing, think about it this way. Most of play therapists meet with our clients once a week for 45 minutes. That's another 167 hours when they are not in your office. And to me, that really highlights the need to integrate parents more. The change really, really happens outside your office with family, with parents, with their interactions with kids at school, with teachers. And integrating parents means that parents now can become advocates for their children at school. And if you build that rapport with parents, then you can help them make that shift. You can help them know how to advocate. You can um, you can really support parents in the work that they're doing. And to me, that kind of brings me to the second point, which is if you are not able to build that therapeutic rapport with parents, then they're not going to build that trust. We work hard as play therapists. You work hard as play therapists, as child adolescent therapists, to build rapport with your child and adolescent clients. Are you working equally as diligently to build that same level of therapeutic rapport with parents? Because if you want them to make the shifts and make the adjustments, make the changes that you're asking them to make, if you don't have that trust and therapeutic rapport with them where they know that you're not judging them, that you're not secretly behind the scenes thinking they're the worst parent on the planet, then they're not going to really feel confident making those shifts. They're not going to use you as their support when it gets hard making those shifts outside of the session, because it will get hard for them. It'll get hard for you, it'll get hard for them. And if you have that rapport, then that's going to help get through those really tough, deep changes that is important for them to make in the change process. So Centro Groen says this is postmodern era. We cannot keep working with individuals we have to bring the tribe's family into the play therapy room. We have to work with no shame or blame in the parenting zone. I 100% agree with you. So, so very true. And I can't tell you how many parents I work with. I learned a long time ago, a couple decades now, if I did not find a way to integrate parents in more effectively, then I was going to be more frustrated. That's the other thing that gets in the way, because we don't have that therapeutic rapport with parents when we're asking them to make that shift, or maybe they're not coming in for appointments. Then maybe that's because they worry about shame and blame, and it gets hard. And it's not even that you are necessarily blaming them, or you're trying really hard not to show your frustration. They already feel that way. So and then what happens is, because parents are not necessarily coming in, and maybe you're trying to schedule appointments but they're not coming, or maybe you're meeting with them 5 minutes and giving them some tips and they're not integrating them, then or maybe you're getting lots of texts and phone calls in between sessions and you're not really seeing the shift that's needed, then we do have a tendency to be frustrated, and it's kind of burns us out a little bit. And to me, if you have a framework, if you have expectations for how that parents are going to be integrated, not just the end of the session, not just in between sessions, phone calls, texts. I mean, really meeting with them, developing rapport with them. You have a whole 45-minute on a regular basis, regular and consistent basis with them. That's going to help you build rapport with parents. That's going to help them feel like you trust them, that you care about them as much as you care about their child, that you're not blaming, that you're not judging. That can take several sessions. I find I have to kind of say that over and over with parents, so that they really do begin to understand that I'm not judging them, that I understand how hard things are, that I understand how parenting is. It's hard. I have kids, they're grown now. It was hard being a parent. I didn't get those neurotypical kids. I didn't get the compliant kids. I didn't get those. I get it. I totally get it. And if I don't spend time with them, if you don't spend time with parents, building that rapport with them with dedicated 45-minute to an hour sessions on a regular and consistent basis, in the beginning at least, without the kids present, then you're not going to have that strong rapport needed in order to help them make shifts. And then that also reduces that time in between sessions where you're texting or emailing or listening to voicemails or having phone calls. And for the record, I really encourage therapists, I really encourage you not to do therapy by email or therapy by text. It's it's not the most effective way to do things. There's so much miscuing that can go on with that, because you don't see facial expressions, you can't hear voice tones, you can't see my cues of safety, as Deb Dana would say with polyvagal theory, with my crinkly eyes and my smile and giving those cues with my voice tone. You don't get that in emails. You don't get that in texts. You get that in sessions, being fully present in the moment with them, where they begin to really understand and connect and will use you for support. And the higher acuity the family system that you're working with, the longer that's going to take to build that rapport. The other thing is, not integrating parents in. I mean, even like I'm usually going to get parents in the sessions with their kids. And I oftentimes, I think the other thing that we don't do is really um, recognize, first and foremost, children exist within a system. They exist within a family system. That family system has ways of interacting. They have ways of dealing with things or not dealing with things. They have ways of regulating or not regulating all of these different relationship patterns. How are parents managing all of the different personalities within the family system? How are kids navigating those sibling relationships? If you've worked with kids who are special needs, you know siblings often struggle because the children with special needs, rightly so, need a lot of time and attention. That and parents only, they're finite human beings. So how are they making sure to meet the needs of the whole family? And that's never going to be possible all the time, 100%. Family needs get met. Everybody, for lack of a better way of saying it, they kind of have to kind of take turns in the family, meaning some family members' needs are more prominent at some points and other family members at other times. And sometimes the family is balanced and doing well, and sometimes they're out of balance, and maybe somebody's struggling a little bit more. When you have a child with special needs in the family, then it's going to be out of balance for the most part anyway, because there's additional things going on that family members are having to take care of, including parents. And so, even let's say you, even in a family where one of the kids, your client usually, is really struggling with emotion regulation and having emotional meltdowns. If you work with children, you have these kids on your caseload, the ones with emotion regulation, they take up a lot of emotional space in the family. And sometimes the siblings get overwhelmed with that client or that sibling, your client. And so, what are the dynamics in the family? And how is, are, if you aren't having at least the parents come in talking with you, you're not necessarily going to know these things. And you might not necessarily think to ask. And if you include more than just the child at some point in time in the play therapy process, you have a better idea of what the relationship patterns are. You can see those in real time. Now, they're always going to put on their best face in your office. That's true for all of us. And you still get to see over time how those interaction patterns work. So Centro Groen says we can work right to right brain work so we can make a space that's secure. Yes, that's about that attachment relationship and the importance of meeting together with parents in your office. Yes, Daniel Siegel talks about those resonance circuits, and we become attuned um, mind to mind. So, yeah. And also, if you really want to see what's going on with your clients, then you can see how they're doing with their parents. If you invite the parents and do family play therapy session with your client and parents. And also, if you want to see the whole system, you can invite the whole system or at least other parts of the system into the play therapy session and do family play therapy sessions. The likelihood I'm going to do family play therapy with my clients is pretty high. At the very least, I will invite parents in to the play therapy session. I will also meet with parents without children present so we can do that parenting work. And then I also oftentimes will have parents in the session with their child working on co regulation and attachment and helping parents use some attachment based parenting skills with their child. And then the other thing is, I want to see how the whole family is doing. I want to see for myself how they're doing. I want to see their strengths. What are the strengths in the family system? Because I want to reinforce those and really validate those with parents and with the family members. So, family play therapy is a really awesome way to be able to see those relationships in real time. And if I don't have a plan for, at the very least, including parents in the play therapy process, then I'm not really going to get a sense of, because I can ask them, I'm not going to get a sense of parent child relationship. I'm not going to get a sense of parents really implementing the changes that I'm asking them to make. Um, and that builds that ability to then, if I feel like I need the whole family, to really set the stage with parents to bring in parts of the family or the whole family into the play therapy process and get a sense of what's going on. Because children exist within the context of their family. Like I mentioned earlier, typically kids come to your office 45 minutes a week, less, or maybe an hour at the most, and they are with their family in the community, school, friends, parents, family members, 167 hours, not minutes, hours a week, not with you. So the thing is, the shift can take place in your office. That's the purpose of play therapy. And the rest of the 167 hours is when they're going to be implementing those changes. And that's where that shift is really going to be taken out. And as we say, generalized into their everyday life that makes it much more integrated. And having parents more actively involved with a lot more time spent with them will help that shift to happen. So that is it for today. Just kind of a recap. To me, the biggest mistake that I see in play therapy is not having parents as a partner and in the change process. And then the second biggest mistake is not really having them in the sessions and not integrating siblings and other family members into the play therapy sessions where you can see and really get a better sense of the relationships and the problems that these can cause really are, you may see reduced effectiveness because you're not going to see the change that really needs to happen because you don't have that therapeutic rapport with parents. You don't have that trust with them, and they're not able to generalize what goes on in the session into their everyday lives as effectively. And for the higher functioning families, probably we will be able to do this with minimal parent engagement, meaning just like 5 or 10 minutes at the end of the session or in between session texts. Um, and it's the families who are more moderate to severe. If you really want to see change with them, then you really, really have to make that shift as the play therapist to have a structure in place, to have expectations for how parents are going to be involved and how are you communicating that to them so that they do engage and that you can help make the shift in the session. And then parents are going to help make that shift in the child's everyday life, the other 167 hours a week. The other thing is, if you don't have this plan, to have a more um, intentional way of partnering, partnering with parents. Um, they're not going to partner with you in the real sense of partnering, collaboration, unless you build trust with them. So they're not going to be able to make that shift as well as if they don't have trust with you, if they don't feel support from you, if you don't take that time to help them feel supported, that they're not being blamed, that you're not judging them. That takes time to build that. The other thing is, if you have that intentional time on a consistent and regular basis, then that's going to cut down and even alleviate texting in between sessions, emailing in between sessions, which I don't recommend anyway, because you really need to be in the same room to be able to have the message received as you're intending it to, which you can miscue in emails and texts and phone calls here and there, and returning phone calls and playing phone tag and doing the emails. That takes time. The likelihood you're going to get burned out and overwhelmed, frustrated is pretty high. And then that frustration is really going to interfere with your ability to connect with parents, for them to feel supported. They're going to pick up on it. You're going to feel burned out. And that's usually an indication that maybe something's off. So you want to make sure to have a plan to partner with parents in the change process. And that means including them much more into the treatment process. And then finally, the thing that can happen if you don't have a plan, if you don't really integrate parents more, um, integrated, more integral, I said that word twice, much more into the process, then you're not going to be able to see. And I mean, at this point, you can even invite them into the play therapy sessions, parents, where you get some really good information. And it's a way for you to help parents practice the skills and really strengthen that attachment relationship with their child. You can see the relationship patterns. You can see the strengths. We want to highlight those strengths, and reinforce those, and affirm parents that they are doing a good job. Parenting is hard. And the thing is, here's the other thing. If you integrate the siblings into the treatment process, then you can see the whole interaction patterns and see the strengths, as well as maybe where some shifts need to happen. And you can only do that if you have a framework and a system to integrate parents, and then also integrate the siblings. And so, um, in order to do that, you really need to think about, like, I have a family play therapy model that I developed because I needed a framework. And to me, framework is your roadmap. And the framework, I'm a big fan of. Most of my theoretical lens that I look through is first and foremost child-centered play therapy, which I believe, if you look at it from a neuroscience and attachment lens, it makes tons of sense. Um, and then Centro Groen says, I've seen a lot of changes when I work with families in the play therapy room. So true. Me too. But we have to promote investigation. That's so true. Yes. Thanks. I'm going to be in your work. Oh, yay. That's awesome. Somebody did. Thanks for your book. Yes, I do have a book focused on, the book is Attachment Focused Family Play Therapy, and Intervention for Children and Adolescents After Trauma. So, yes, the book is based on the model, and the model that I like to use, because I think we need a good framework. To me, the framework is like my roadmap to help me get through all of the phases of treatment. And I think the way we keep ourselves grounded as play therapists is to have that framework grounded in theory and informed by research. And so, if we look at the research of attachment, neurobiology of attachment, interpersonal neurobiology, polyvagal theory, then and using that attachment lens, to me, that's a really That's what I base my framework on. And then there are what that looks different in each phase of treatment, and integrating play therapy with families. And my model also includes teaching parents attachment based parenting skills. So I do have training coming up on November 5th. It is called Attachment Focused Family Play Therapy. It's a live webinar. So it's a full day live webinar. In this webinar, I'm gonna go over the neuroscience and attachment, and how to conceptualize that in the work that you're doing using the model, the attachment based family play therapy model. So I'll go through each of the phases of treatment, what the therapist's role is, how to choose interventions at each stage of the treatment process. I'll teach you the attachment based parenting framework that I use, and how you can teach that to parents. So it's kind of a step by step how to get through the process. If you're interested in the training, on November 5th, you can go to my website. Oh, there's the name of the training, Attachment Focused Family Play Therapy. And if you're interested in the training, you can go to my website, which is rrhcounseling.com/courses. There's two versions. I like to put two versions because not everybody needs continuing education hours, the ones we use here in the US. So there's usually a registration version that has continuing education hours. And then there's a training version that does not have continuing education hours. And that one's usually a little less expensive for those people who don't need the CEs. Most people here in the US do need the CEs. There are play therapy CEs available. So if you're working towards your registered play therapy credential, you can use these CE hours. So if you are interested, I will also post a link for my book. I'll put that in the comments as well. If you're watching on Instagram, you can go to my bio. It'll take you over to my website. On the homepage, there's also a link for my book if you're interested in that. It's a really easy read. I like to make things practical, and lots of case examples, how to apply the models. We'll also, if you're interested in the online live webinar, the thing that I love about the live webinars is we do small group interaction as well. So you can hear what's going on with your colleagues as well, and you get lots of ideas from them. So I love that part about live webinars. Alrighty, so that is it for today, and I will see you next time. Bye.